Welcome to this short introduction about the Certified Internal Auditor. My name is Talal Harrasi. I teach CIA Certified Internal Auditor, CISA Certified Information System Auditor, CRISC Certified in Risk and Information System Controls, and ACCA Associate of Certified Chartered Accountant. The CIA Certified Internal Auditor is a globally recognized certification for internal auditors, and it's a standard by which individuals may demonstrate their competency and professionalism in the internal audit field. So if you're a CIA, you're trusted to perform the internal audit precisely. Why? Because the CIA certification is so competitive. It's not an academic degree. It's a professional certification. So to become a CIA, you have to earn it. There are no shortcuts. If you can pass the CIA exam and meet all the other requirements, then you are trusted to perform a job of a certified internal auditors. The CIA is also very strong in your CV. So if you are a CIA, you will likely to receive a higher salary and better benefit. If you apply for a job and you are a CIA, it's much easier for you to get the job, and you will also be a target and for the HR companies, for organizations, for big organizations which require positions such as chief audit executives. The certificate is offered by the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors. The IIA is an international professional association. It was founded in 1941. It focuses on education, research, certification, and professional events of internal auditors. It also maintains the International Professional Practice Framework and offers several professional certifications, of which the CIA is the most pursued or the most important certificate which the IIA offer. The CIA exam is available through computer-based testing, allowing you to test year-round at more than 500 locations worldwide. Candidates are able to sit for exams at any IIA-authorized Pearson VUE testing center worldwide, regardless of whether the testing center is located in your hometown or country. This video does not explain in details how you register for the exam. However, there are three main steps. The first one is to be a member, an IIA member. And to get your IIA membership, you can register through the IIA website or through the local chapter website. So if some countries have a local chapter website, the IIA local chapter website. Now the question is, do you have to be an IIA member to sit for the exam? And the answer is no, you do not have. However, it's preferable. Why? Because of many benefits. First, if you are an IIA member, then your exam fees will be cheaper. The second one is, if you are an IIA member, then you are a member in a database which has also other members worldwide. That is a database of about 200,000 members worldwide. The third benefit is that you will have access to some materials, such as the IIA magazine, and sometimes could be some guidelines which is only available for members. Now, once you get your IIA membership number or membership ID, then the second step is you go to the IIA CCMS website, and you can search this in Google. You just write IIA CCMS, and then you log in, you open the IIA CCMS, and you also do registration here. If you are an IIA member, then for the ID, you can put the IIA membership ID. And if you are not, so let's say, for example, you decided you don't want to be a member, then you skip step 1 and you go to step 2, the IIA CCMS website, and you start from there. The third step is once you before we go to the third step, going back to the second step, in the CCMS, there you will pay for the exam, for the sitting fees, and there you also will upload your documents such as your certificate, your transcript, your photo, and your proof of experience. Now, once these documents are approved, then you can register for the exam. You can pay for the exam. The third step is to create an account in the IIA Pearson View. So again, go to Google, and there you put an IIA Pearson View. So you open the website and you do a registration there. And there you can schedule your exam. Now, the best thing is to schedule your exam ahead of time. Why? Because you don't know if the seat is available. Some countries, the seats are not easily available. Why? Because it could be that many candidates are in the waiting list, for example, or have already booked seats. Accordingly, it's better to plan ahead of time. So these are the 3 steps in general. To be eligible for the CIA, there are two very important conditions. The first one is the education, and the second one is the relevant experience. And the education, we're talking here about the academic degree, and the relevant experience, we're talking here about the internal audit or equivalent. So when we say equivalent, is something relating, for example, to the internal control systems, to compliance, for example, to risk management. So this is what's meant by relevant experience, but most importantly is the internal audit experience. However, if you are, for example, if you work in the compliance department, not in the internal audit department, then you can also apply for the exam. But before you do this, it's much better that you first fill up the form, send it to the IIA International, and if they approve it, then you can go ahead. Now the rule is for the education is that you must have a bachelor degree in any discipline. So it's not like you have to have a finance bachelor degree or 3 to 4 years after secondary school degree. I mean, it's not restricted to finance or accounting, as a lot of people think when they think about internal audit, when they think about the CIA. So you can be a HR graduate, you can be a technology graduate, you can be any kind of discipline, as long as it's a 3 to 4 years of post-secondary education. In addition to that, so that's the education requirement, you must also have 24 months of relevant experience. Now here we're talking about the second line of the 2 circles. So the education is 3 to 4 years post-secondary, and for the relevant experience is 24 months. Now, if you have a master, so if you have 3 to 4 years post-secondary plus a master, then you're only required to have 12 months of work experience. So 12 months will be waived. Now, let's say, for example, you don't have 3 to 4 years of post-secondary, but you have only 2 years of post-secondary. In this case, you must have 5 years of relevant experience. If you do not have any sort of post-secondary academic degree, then you must have 7 years of proven work experience. Now, when we say proven, when you register the first time in the IIA website, you have to, for example, upload your ID. So let's say, for example, upload a photo of you. You also upload an ID of, for example, your passport. You also upload your education certification, your transcript as well. And for the relevant experience, you're going to have to fill up a form, have it signed by somebody who's a CIA, who knows you, who knows about your experience. If you do not have somebody who's a CIA who knows about your experience, then that's fine. You still can have it signed by your line manager, for example, to sign or to attest that yes, you have got the 12 months experience or 24 months experience, 5 or 7 years work experience. Having said this, it's maybe that the IIA might contact the one who signed on behalf of your experience. They might contact him on a phone call or an email, either from international, from the IA international, or it could be through the IA local chapter in your country. The two main CIA eligibility requirements are education and relevant experience. And the rule here is you must have 3 to 4 years post-secondary. That is 3 to 4 years post-secondary academic degree. If you have that, then you also must have a relevant experience of 24 months. What we mean by the relevant experience is an experience in internal audit or compliance or risk management or internal control system or internal control systems. If you have a master, then you don't have to have 24 months of work experience. 12 months will be sufficient. If you have 2 years post-secondary, then you must have 5 years of work experience. If you do not have any academic degree post-secondary, then you must have 7 years relevant experience. The relevant experience and the education must be proved. For the education, as I said before, you upload your certification and your transcript when you register as a member in the CCMS. For the relevant experience, you will have to fill up a form, and the form has to be signed by somebody who is a CIA and who knows about your experience. If you do not have somebody who is a CIA and who knows about your experience, then that has to be signed by your line manager. So these two are the main two requirements or eligibility requirements for the CIA. There's the third one actually, which is to obtain an IIA certification, you must exhibit high moral and professional character and agree to abide by the IIA's code of ethics. A character reference form signed by an IIA certified individual or your supervisor or your professor if you're a student is required.
The certification program's eligibility requires candidates to complete the program certification process within 4 years of application approval. If a candidate has not completed the certification process within 4 years, all fees and exam parts will be forfeited. So let's say, for example, you managed to pass only 2 exams, but you did not complete the third exam, and that in the 4 years. In this case, you will have to sit for the 3 exams again. It's like you start over again. The previous 2 exams which you have passed will be forfeited. You will lose them. Likewise, for example, if you sit for the exams and you pass all the exams, but you did not meet the work experience requirements, and the 4 years elapse without you complete the 4 year the work experience required. In this case, you will also be forfeited the 3 exams and you will have to sit for the exams again. Now, some students ask whether it really requires 4 years for a candidate to pass the 3 exams. And the answer is depends from one person to another. But what I think is 1 year is enough to pass the 3 exams. 1 year is long enough actually to pass the 3 exams. Now that all depends on your, for example, your study plan and your preparation for the exam and the time management, because I've seen also some people who are really good in the internal audit, and they are well equipped in terms of knowledge and experience and understanding the CIA materials, but what they lack is time management, for example, and that what makes them cannot complete the time of the exam, but complete the exam on time. And we will talk about the exam time later. But 1 year is good enough, and the good thing, as I said before, that the exam is available throughout the year, which means, for example, I would say that 2 months before each exam is enough to prepare if you manage to study at least 2 hours a day and answer questions, so you prepare well. And we'll talk about how you prepare well for the exam.
The CIA exam is split into 3 parts, each of which you must sit for and pass separately. Part 1 is Essentials of Internal Auditing, Part 2 Practice of Internal Auditing, and Part 3 Business Knowledge for Internal Auditing. Each part or the exams are multiple choice. The questions in the exams are multiple choice questions. Part 1 is 125 questions that you must clear in 2 hours and a half. So basically you have 150 minutes divided by 125 questions, so you have 1 minute and 20 seconds. Part 2 is 100 questions exam. You've got 2 hours to clear it. So that's 120 minutes divided by 100 questions. So again, you have 1 minute and 20 seconds. And likewise for the part 3, which means that you have to read the question, you have to read the answers. So you have to read and think, and you need to be quick because it's only 1 minute and 20 seconds. You don't want to miss that. And the IA does not require that you complete them to complete the 3 parts in numerical order. So you can start with part 1 if you'd like, or for example, if you are a student and you're still fresh-minded in terms of business knowledge, you still do not also have the experience of internal audit, so you can start with part 3, for example, business knowledge for internal audit. But I recommend that you take the exam in order. Why? Because each CIA exam is built on the previous. So the other thing that's very important is if you don't pass an exam, so you have to wait for 3 months or precisely for 90 days before you can retake it. However, it's important to remember that if you don't pass the exam part on first attempt, you can still study for and take the other part. So for example, if you do part 1 today, you don't pass, you cannot do part 1 for 90 days, but you still can do part 2 and part 3. Now, there's one very important thing also to emphasize is the IA does not test all concepts at the same level. So there's the awareness, there are questions at the awareness level, and there are questions at the proficiency level. Anything that's relating to essentials of internal audit, and anything that's relating to how you conduct internal audit is usually tested at the proficiency level. Why? Because that's your core business, that's your profession. However, in terms of, for example, business knowledge, or which include, for example, technology, security, information security, finance and accounting, that does not test at the professional. It doesn't go deep into the topics, but it tests your awareness of these business knowledge. So that's very important to emphasize. Part 1 of the exam is on internal audit basics. This test focus on guidance from the international practice of internal audit, from internal control and risk, and other various techniques for conducting internal audits. Other key knowledge areas include auditing regulations and general requirements based on the IAA standards and code of ethics. If you look at, or if you see on the items that you will be tested on, 35% emphasis will be from the governance, risk management, and control. That does not mean, if you look at the percentage wise on each topic or on each item, foundation of internal audit is 15%, independence and objectivity is 15%, proficiency and do professional care is 18%, and so on. That does not mean the exam is splitted among these items separately. What it means is that the emphasis will be from, for example, governance, risk management, and control up to 35%. However, you will still find, for example, questions that will have a combination of, let's say, risk, governance, and quality assurance all in one question. But the emphasis, so that's percentage, is on the emphasis or the importance, or where the most of the questions, the content of most of the questions will be, how they are divided among these topics. Part 2 of the exam covers internal audit practice. This section tests candidates on their knowledge of the strategic and operational role of internal auditors, as well as the operational steps for various types of engagements. So now if you look at part 1, which was the essentials of internal audit, part 1 teaches you the basics of internal audit. What is internal audit? What is the definition of internal audit? And things related to best practices of internal audit and the standards of the IIA and how you implement these standards. Now, part 2 is built on that part. So part 2 is built on part 1. And this part 2 is how you perform the internal audit. So part 1 was to understand the internal audit. Part 2 is how you perform internal audit, including how you manage the internal audit activity, how you plan for your audit, how you conduct your audit, how you perform your audit, and how you communicate the results of your report to these different stakeholders, how you follow up on your observations and recommendations, and how you, for example, make the relation between the auditor and the auditee in terms of the communication, in terms of the collection of evidence, evaluation of evidence, and how you make sure that, for example, the observations that you write are the observations that will add value to the organization, not on picking on mistakes, and the relation and how you communicate your results to the audit committee as well. That's also will be covered in part 2. Part 3, business knowledge for internal audit, that has 4 main items: the business acumen, information security, information technology, and financial management. And so the business acumen is the highest percentage, 35%. So that means 35% of the exam questions will be from business acumen, 25% from information security, and the other 2 items is 20% for each. Part 3 of the exam focuses on internal audit knowledge elements. This part of the exam covers aspects of the internal audit job that practitioners need to be familiar with. So if you look at part 1 and part 2, these are essentials and of the internal audit and how you conduct your internal audit. Part 3 is a bit different. It's about the general knowledge, the business knowledge of the internal audit. at the awareness level, not at the professional level most of the time. So you'll be, for example, in terms of information security and finance or business acumen, there are different candidates from different backgrounds. Not all the people who sit for the exam are finance graduates, and likewise not all of them. For example, from information security, you will find people who are conducting CI exam who are electric engineers, for example, mechanical engineers, or physicians, or different different field and disciplines. And accordingly, the business knowledge here does not go in deep into these topics, which are listed, the four topics that you see in the screen. Again, it tests the awareness. The part one and part two tests at the proficiency level, while part three tests at the awareness level. I have listed on this slide some tips that hopefully will be useful and help you pass the exam. First of all, the CI exam is not academic. It's a professional exam that tests your professional experience. It's very important to understand this. Why? Because some people think that they can study for the CI exam a week before the exam. That's not gonna work. You need to give yourself allocate for what I recommend is to allocate, for example, 2 months before the exam to prepare for it. The CI exam is not academic. It's about scenario. It's about analyzing scenarios. Yes, it's a multiple choice question, but most of the questions will be scenarios, and it will treat you like if you are an internal auditor, and in front of you is a scenario, how you're gonna act on it, or what is the best answer for that scenario. That is the kind of questions. Now, very important for you when you study for the exam is to allocate adequate time, and you need to practice exam questions as much as possible. Try to solve them all. I use a book. I don't want to mention the publisher name, but the book I use has a database of questions, online database of questions that for each part there are about 1,000 questions to practice. So what I used to do is to answer all of these questions, and even for the questions that I did correct, I go to the question and I ask myself why. For example, if the correct answer is B, so why A was not correct, why D and C are not correct. And you will learn a lot. I mean, from the questions you will learn more than from the textbook itself. So you need to practice as much possible these questions. Practice to read, understand, and solve exam questions in a minute and 12 seconds. I've seen students where they were telling me that after 1 hour in the exam they were tired, so they were exhausted. The exam, the first few questions, or the first 1 hour of the question of the 1 hour of the exam took all their energy, and they were exhausted already. So that's why you need to prepare. You need the brain is like a muscle. You need to exercise it. So try to solve questions. Now you don't have to solve 125 questions from the beginnings. You do it gradually and eventually. So for example, you start with 10 or 20 questions. You answer them, and then after some time you practice to answer, for example, 50 questions, and until before the exam, 2 weeks before the exam, you make exams for yourself, practice exam for yourself of 100 or 125 questions. This is where and you need to sit in a place where it's silent, nobody there to disturb you. Allocate that much of time to 2 hours and a half or 2 hours depending on the exam, and test yourself. And you need also to analyze your results, where you were weak in and where you were strong in, and you need to work on the areas where you see yourself weak. In the exam, don't allocate more than a minute and 12 seconds for each question. If you cannot solve a question, just put the best guess and move to the next. Time management is very essential in passing the exam. Some students spend most of the time in the first 20 or 30 questions, and they end up having only remaining 10 minutes or 20 minutes only. And so they will start, putting guessing for all the remaining questions. That will not make you pass. So if you don't know the answer, just put the best guess and go on. There is a flag there. You can in the question screen, you can put that flag. So once you finish all the questions, if you still have time, you can go back to the flagged questions and try to do your best. The other one is, don't make unnecessary assumptions when reading the question. Stick only to the information given in the question. For example, if the question starts with a chief audit executive, so you don't have to go into your imagination. Is this chief audit executive a senior, so 50 or 60 years old, 20 years old? Is he a master degree or is he a bachelor degree? Does he manage a department of 2 people or a department of 20 or 30 people? Or don't also relate this person to your manager. Don't assume what is not in the question. Just stick to the information that is given in the question. The last tip I have is, I have seen a lot of people think that part one is easy. As a matter of fact, if you look at the book of part one, it's very easy to complete the book, the textbook, to read it, to understand it, even in 2 days or 3 days. So people sometimes fall in the trap that part one is easy, and then they will be surprised that part one is not as straightforward as they think. The questions will not be as straightforward as they think. They will not be as easy as they think. That's why preparation, answering practice questions, and time management, all of the other tips are important. So don't think that I'm not saying that the CI is scary or it's difficult to attempt, but again, it's a competitive certificate. You need to earn it. There are no shortcuts. It's not academic. You can always find more information about the CIA and other certificates issued by the IIA from their website www.theiia.org. Coming to the end of this introduction about the CIA, I would like to emphasize that the CIA is a game-changing for your personal, professional achievement. It adds a lot to your CV. It also adds a lot at your workplace. It makes you a much better, more equipped internal auditor, where you understand and you conduct your audit based on best practices, international standards. Also, looking at the contents of the 3 parts, I can tell you that you will learn a lot. I mean, even before you pass the exams, just studying the 3 parts, the contents of the 3 parts, I'm sure will make you a much more equipped and better internal auditor. Best of luck to you all. My best regards. My name is Talal Isa Al Harasi. Thank you very much.